I don't even know how to pronounce the subtitle, Silmeria, something like that. But run by airemlis, and Valkyrie's profile sounds quite interesting, so wish you the best of luck.
All right, thank you very much. I guess we'll skip the intro. There's not really a whole lot that needs to be shown there. I'll go over it all anyways, so we'll dive right in here just in a second. Get one last thing sorted out on my end, and we're good to go. So off we go. So as Yaga was so kind to say, this is Valkyrie Profile to Silmeria. It is the sequel/prequel to Valkyrie Profile 1. I'll do my best to point out when the two stories collide, as it were. It's not for a while, though. But first things first, we'll talk about Alicia here, our protagonist. She is the Princess of Japan, and also happens to be the vessel for the soul of Silmeria. The reason why she happens to be in that particular state is not exactly clear, but the game does kind of give an allusion to Silmeria is kind of like the rebel Valkyrie for the three Valkyrie sisters, and Odin was kind of tired of her transgressions and wanted to rebirth her back to Valhalla and bring her back, but for whatever reason that didn't quite go as expected, and so she remained within Alicia. So that's Alicia's background. Again, I also mentioned that she is the Princess of Japan. When she was younger, she was exiled from her country because the Kingdom of Japan pretty much outright hates the gods for various reasons, but specifically the Valkyries, because the duty of the Valkyries is to bring Einherjar to Valhalla to fight the War of Ragnarok and all that for Odin. And usually most countries see this as a like a sign of valor and honor and all that, but Japan, on the other hand, is not too keen on that when they take their kings and queens and their warriors and all that. So they really resent the gods for that kind of behavior. So the exile of Alicia was both a guise of protection and also out of basically hatred. But fast forward to the present, Alicia and Silmeria were chased away by Hrist at one point, the current Valkyrie. And Silmeria mentions to Alicia, hey, we gotta really prepare for the coming war with the gods that Hrist kind of has already mentioned in the intro. We're trying to make our way into Japan to see how prepared Japan actually is for this war that they're kind of inciting with the gods. So, just making our way through here. As for the actual, really beginning of the story, all of that is just intro. We start off in the town Solde. We are supposed to take a ship to Japan the easy way, but of course, as with all RPGs, we never get to take the easy way. But on the way out of the town, Alicia mentions, hey, I'm not really that great of a fighter, which she's lying, by the way. So we stop and pick up actually, I forgot one thing. We pick up a mercenary, kind of, Rufus. Silmeria points him out to Alicia and says, hey, you really should go talk to him and ask him to come along with us. And Rufus eventually agrees, but both sides seem to be very suspicious of each other and don't really tell each other why they're looking to make it to Japan. But aside from that, we do have other party members called Einherjar, as I kind of mentioned earlier. But they do not act quite the same as Valkyrie Profile 1 Einherjar, where generally the purpose of them was to be released to go back to Valhalla and fight the War of Ragnarok. These Einherjar are, since they are within Silmeria, They are a little different, and her goal instead is to simply strengthen them to the point that they can sustain themselves on their own and be released back into the mortal plane. So yeah, we have those coming along with us as well. We have a couple already, but here's our first boss battle, which introduces, for the purpose of this speed run, the ability to break parts of monsters, and we're going for essentially a quick kill here, so long as it cooperates, where we're going to target basically just the head. And you're going to see that we're only really going to do about 30% of HP off this boss to kill it, which obviously is a lot better than doing all of it. Ooh, getting a crit is real good too, although not as helpful as I would have expected. But so yeah, first boss, 30% HP, easy kill, right? If only all of them were like that.
It seems the fates are on our side for now.
So one particular bit coming up here, at least on the next boss, or more importantly for Mithra himself, we're going to be feeding Mithra pretty much as much experience as we can so that we can release him to get particular items from him. When you release Einherjar in this version, you get stat boosting items from the release or at the time of release, and then when you find them in the overworld, they give you, well, they generally give you items and money and such at particular points in the story. In this case, Mithra's item is going to allow us to pretty much entirely skip a boss, and that's obviously a very good idea. But we've made it to Japan. We made our way to the front of the castle to talk to, or at least find out what's going on with the guards. Apparently there is a back entrance, but the guards that are going on rotation there go out for lunch break, so we're going to take advantage of that and slip right on in, do our investigation, etc. And yeah, I guess the one thing I didn't mention about Einherjar, when you go to summon them, most of them have 2 or 3 potential Einherjar to be had. And the very first one that we picked up with Krad, it could have been Krad or Roland. Krad is kind of the, like, safe route, kind of a little slower, a little less execution heavy, but Roland is a little faster, and when you do Roland right, it feels really good, so oh well. No harm at the end of the day. Perfect, got the black crystal there. So again, breaking parts of monsters is generally serving the purpose of finding accessory items. And accessory items can have various rune colors and rune shapes. And various combinations of those allow you to learn skills and such for our warriors here. And we will be making heavy abuse of them, or at least a few of them. So as Rizard kind of mentioned earlier, you'll notice that I'm going to be jumping a lot, and that is because you can actually influence your movement while in the air, and for whatever reason that lets you go just a little bit faster than walking. There's a few exceptions to that where if you're like at the edge of a screen or something like that, or where something is going to block your way, that you won't jump, but for the most part, Alicia's going to be in the air most of the time here. So a lot of the setup early on is purely for getting items and such to kind of cheese our way through a lot of these bosses where we don't actually have to do that much effort. Like that flare gem there we're going to be using up ahead. And like I mentioned, the Holy Water of Mithra that we're going to be getting later. So it's really nice early on to not actually have to do all that much by comparison, I suppose. So earlier on, I was keeping track of Mithra's level. If Mithra had been level 2, I would have needed to do a little bit of experience farming here. But fortunately, that was not the case, so I get to just wail away on this boss for free. And that all ties back to having to release Mithra early on. Since he's level 1, he only needs to be level 6 when to release him. If you were level 2, he'd have to be level 7, and that's significantly more experience. But to kind of explain what that really means, when you fight enemies, there's a couple different orb types that can drop. One of them happens to be a blue gem, and that is for experience. I don't remember the exact multiplier amount, but it's definitely something that we would be looking for a little later, but not right now. Okay, so he's sort of entered his final phase here. Really looking to push a little more damage. That should be enough. So now I want to kill off my party members here and funnel all that experience onto Mithra. Should only take one more hit, and hopefully he cooperates. Yeah, he does. So there's a chance that he, for whatever reason, targets Mithra there and kind of throws us for a loop. Oh, actually, Dylan lived. That's unfortunate. Alright, well, that's fine. 2 HP. Like, come on, man. You couldn't have finished him for me? Unlucky. So bust out that flare gem and see ya. That's pretty much going to be the name of the game for the first couple bosses here. Although the next one is quite interesting, so yeah. I'll show you that flying enemies aren't always flying. No, I need to actually take him out of my party first. There we go. So yeah, he's just high enough level to release, and off he goes, back into the world, to contribute as a member of society, or more importantly, as a member of our future death squad for killing bosses for free. So we found the mage's secret laboratory all the way down in the bottom of the Tapan Castle here. We meet Alicia's kind of childhood friend Dallas, who is one of the 3 mages. And he essentially tells us that Tapan is doing all this research about the gods to create a separate world or realm for themselves to be free of the tyranny of the gods. And in order to do that, they need... Wow, I'm like way off on that. And then that photon misses right under there. That's amazing. Photons do awesome things, by the way. Like, just completely go under enemies. Anyways, back to the story. They are trying to get the Dragon Orb to essentially power their realm of stability, or not being a part of the gods' normal realms. But unfortunately, we get interrupted by the rest of the guards and the security, and we have to run our way out. But on the way out, we run into a lot of guards, and this mage, Lazard Valeth, steps in and for whatever reason decides to help us. And if you've played Valkyrie Profile 1, the name Lazard Valeth should definitely ring a bell. But if you have not, that's totally fine. I won't spoil too much, I hope. But just remember that name. It's very important. one other particular part that occurred there, just as I was on the way out, we ran into the Valkyrie Christ, and she essentially just threatens us and says, you shouldn't be doing this, you should return to Valhalla, all that fun stuff, towards Silmeria. And Silmeria is like, no, this is ridiculous. These people should not have to be under the tyranny of Odin anymore. And Hrist is like, well, whatever. Like, she kind of just brushes us off, and just straight up dismisses us and goes about her business. But she will be back, definitely, as she definitely gave us the warning of don't interfere with this. But we got to do what we can. It wouldn't be much of a video game, or a story for that matter, if we gave up this early. But Lazard does tell us additionally some information about we should go to this old village across the mountains, and that was supposedly the last recorded place of the Dragon Orb. So off we go. And the main story drivers here in Chapter 3 is go to town, go to dungeon, go to town, go to dungeon, so on and so forth. It's a lot of additional story fluff. Maybe not fluff, but a lot of stuff that happens in this. This is by far the longest chapter, but most of it is really centered around just doing the dungeons. And we're doing a little petty theft there. For whatever reason, that lady didn't like us stealing her Earth Gem, but she doesn't stop us, so totally fine with that, I guess.
Hey, that Earth Gem is mine!
Seriously. And what's even more funny is every time you loot someone's house later, Alicia's like, I'll make sure to use this carefully or properly or something like that. So like she reflects upon her petty theft now later. So here we have our first real dungeon. The girl in town told us about it, because apparently that's the hot new location for getting tips for searching for dragon orbs. But most dungeons have a generic gimmick to them. This dungeon introduces seal stones, which when you carry seal stones for yourself, you get the bonuses or detriments that are applied to them. But if you leave them on daises, like the one you can see on the left there, they will be instead applied to the enemies. We won't really be touching too many of them, or taking too many of them for that matter. But there is one here called Sword Blessing, which gives us a free attack multiplier. And that's pretty much going to be the name of the game for fighting enemies and bosses and such, is how high can I get my attack multiplier? Not even so much your base stats, but I mean, of course that helps, but yeah, we are going to be piling on the multipliers as hard and as often as possible. Nice. It's a little stair skip there. It's not really that big of a time save, but it looks nice when you do it, so I'm glad I actually got it when I need to. Oh, but she's not floating in the air this time. That's unfortunate. I guess it was just a little too far over to the left. Oh well, no big deal. So, as you normally find in ruins and places that have myths and legends. Can I speak English? Myths and legends surrounding them. You find that there's usually some grave robbers and treasure hunters, I guess is how Arngrim would like to be called, or actually mercenaries, but either way, he doesn't take too kindly to us insulting him, basically. But for whatever reason, we all decide to get along and make our way further in here. And yeah, they do claim that they don't want to like take the real pricey stuff from us. I'm not sure that I would trust a treasure hunter with words like that, but So birds are jerks. We're gonna take care of one since he was gonna get in our way anyways. And hopefully get a Great Eagle Heart out of it. Of course not. That's fine though. We need to take an encounter anyways for enough crystals to release the Sealstone up ahead, the Sword Blessing one, so that we can carry it out of the dungeon. So having to take that now, no big deal. This room, however, is the absolute worst. Just gonna take it a little slow, but once again, a reminder that birds are jerks, and this game is no different.
All birds are jerks.
Yeah. But we're about to get revenge on a kind of bird, so I guess that's okay. So do note that this is a flying dragon, and that means nothing to me. Yeah. So gravity wins. Yeah. Those wings are purely for show. So here, we basically found after the boss there, we found this dais that used to hold the dragon orb. And due to Silmeria's ability to object read, which kind of goes in hand with the Einherjar, but she's the only one who can do it. So, plot reasons. She's able to read the memories of the dais basically and tell us that it's not here. We need to go to this other place. But the rest of the party sees this, and for whatever reason, this does not seem to surprise Leone. Actually, I'm gonna reset this room, or get an extra encounter. That's fine. Unfortunately, that bird is being a jerk. So I was trying to reset the room to get a better pattern, but oh well.
I can run as fast as any beast.
Yes, you can, Crad. Because I've already committed to resetting the room, I might as well, so. Hopefully I can get past that. Yeah, cool. But anyways, back to story there. Leone and Arngrim witness Silmeria doing this object reading, and then of course they are also introduced to who Silmeria is. But Leone, like I mentioned, just doesn't seem fazed by any of this, and kind of has to play it off like she has nothing to hide. But she definitely has something to hide, so spoilers. Just keep remembering the mounting suspicion against her, though.
Airemlis, I just learned a new pun. Are you ready?
I'm totally ready.
There's a study that says 9 out of 10 people have a fear of hurdles. They never get over it.
That's pretty good.
You can thank Mike. Also, I think you should donate to some incentives. The next incentive we have open is for Ancient Roman Power of Dark Side, and it's to watch the cutscenes. Currently, there are $10 out of 75, so just 65 remaining to unlock that. And then after that, we will have a Phantasy Star 1 with Mr. Starbird. And there's an all dungeons incentive, which is pretty awesome. So you should definitely donate for that to get more Mr. Starbird. Mr. Starbird's pretty. You can name the avatar in Ultima 4. And then choose the song language for Rhapsody, a musical adventure, which, if I may point out, if we meet the sing-along finale, that will choose which language the Valkyries sing in. So you can increase our at least 7 quotation marks of fun by choosing the language. I'm pretty sure the only fluent Valkyrie, or the only Valkyrie fluent in Japanese is me, so... but yeah, you can also choose which song we sing if we unlock that incentive too. So you could probably choose whichever one is the most difficult. So please help us get to RPG limit break. We have 2 Valkyries running Dragon Warrior 2. Not 2, wow. Dragon Warrior 1 randomizer in the event, and we're definitely looking forward to it. So thanks everyone for your support so far. And I mean, if I ask you, please don't torture me by unlocking the fun corner, will that... I don't know how people work. Is that like reverse psychology there? And yeah, please continue to enjoy airemlis.
Thank you for letting us all know what we're here for. I would also encourage donating to torture the Valkyries as much as possible. Specifically for Tina's Fun Corner, I witnessed it last year at RPG Ragnarok. I don't remember the exact name, but yeah. it was a lot of fun. You guys definitely want to see that. So not a whole lot happened after our previous dungeon. Alicia and Leone kind of have a little buddy-buddy moment earlier on, but it's no big deal. One thing that I did forget to mention is at the end of the previous dungeon, Silmeria warns Alicia to be very suspicious of Leone, so even more mounting suspicion, but the fact that she has this like buddy-buddy moment, I guess is supposed to dispel that for you, but I know better than that. So here we're using our Holy Water Mithra. Free kill on bosses is always preferred.
How about taking a break?
And yeah,
We've done enough running.
Just easy like that. The casual way you're supposed to do that is you're supposed to break some levers in the back that drain the arena, which lets you actually get close to the boss and fight it properly, but we're too good for that. Alright, so do a little menu management there. Some interesting bits of story actually happen after that boss. Rufus gets kind of knocked into the dais where the orb used to be, and for whatever reason there's a protective barrier around it that is not supposed to hurt humans, which I guess were the guardians of the orb, so that kind of makes sense, but why would Rufus be affected by it? It turns out that he is a half-elf, and he explains that he's essentially Odin's backup. If something were to happen to Odin, Odin would reincarnate his soul into Rufus, and Rufus would just be, dead. And Rufus has this special ring that he wears to basically make him immune to time. So he's never aging or anything like that. And that definitely reveals his motivation for why he's coming along with us. Because by now, everyone knows that we're trying to help Japan fight a war with the gods. So Rufus definitely has a stake in it, being that if there is no more Odin, then he can actually live out his life without any worries. So we're doing a little shopping here. As is often the case in RPGs, picking up a few things. Most importantly, the map item. Actually, no, I want to sell items. There we go. But what the maps allow you to do is basically quick travel on the world map, and that'll come in handy for skipping some things later. I actually forgot to buy it. Minor detail. And our recently released friend Krad has a very nice sword for us. It pretty much trivializes the first half of the game here. Especially casually, it's definitely something you would want to pick up. Although an argument could be made that Krad is a pretty good heavy warrior, but I'd say his sword well outweighs his benefits. So, picking that up, making our way to our next area. Gonna gather some more information, do a little more shopping. I don't want Shamshears. I have a little extra. I'll buy a few extra Union Blooms just for safety purposes. I shouldn't need them, but you never know. Safety never hurts, right? But off to the desert we go. Another transitional area, much like the fields we were in before. But we won't be coming back to this one at least, so... Oh, that was a really unfortunate location for that.
This will be a worthy foe.
Will it, Dylan? I don't think it will be.
Don't follow us.
So yeah, running is kind of just a coin flip. Usually it plays out in your favor, but sometimes you just get really unlucky. There is one special thing about this area. At the end here, there will be a heavy warrior pickup. If you're at all familiar with Valkyrie Profile 2 and the various ways that it can be pretty much broken damage-wise, Zund here has a 10% chance to show up as our heavy warrior pick, and he is kind of insane. He has a skill called Giant Slayer, which pretty much every boss in the game is a large monster. And Giant Slayer is useful on them. So at this point, or getting something like that at this point would actually be pretty nutty, but the speedrun route for him relies on quite a bit of RNG and luck. So even if we were to get him here, we won't be seeing him other than in the menu. So rest in peace, Zund. And we didn't even get him anyways. That's alright. He's not going to bless the run today. Another thing you might have noticed if you've played Valkyrie Profile 1, a lot of the cities all have the same name, and a lot of the dungeons exist in the same places, albeit with different names. The Trace went out of their way, or Square Enix Trace, whichever version of that you prefer, went out of their way to really kind of stay true to the world map a little bit. So there's a lot of similarities. It's kind of nice to have that familiar feeling. That crawler is being rude. I would have preferred to see it moving to the left. I'm just gonna burn my get out of jail free card. So that I could have jumped over it much easier. It's still possible to do in that particular pattern that it moved, but it's just not worth sweating bullets over. Sometimes I'd like to blame my controller on my input issues, but yeah, it's usually just me. And I guess I'm like the only person running Valkyrie Profile who uses the analog stick, so I'm kind of like in my own special corner for my own movement purposes. Although there will be a time later where I will use the D-pad explicitly for a boss skip, but for the most part, I prefer my analog stick, regardless of what Rizard may say. So earlier, I had an item drop called the Black Crystal. What that does is gives us an additional amount of attack when you are afflicted with an ailment. And this is our first case of getting poisoned reliably. And we don't even care what's in that chest. We simply want the poison gas that casually you would be like, no, I don't want anything to do with that. But we, on the other hand, are definitely all about the poison here. We like living on the edge. And honestly, I think the developers intended for you to be abusing that as much as possible, purely because of the number of times that poison is pretty much just forced on you. So we'll gladly accept their gift. That was interesting. That far left walker there usually is not that far over. Oh well. So gonna do a little setup here for the next boss. It's mostly for just a little bit of damage on the first form. And since I have Crad, it's not even really technically needed, but just to make it a little easier, why not? This next boss is a bit of a troll. It's definitely not safe, even if I were to not be poisoned and at 1 HP. So we definitely will be taking safety saves here. It shouldn't be too terribly bad though, so we'll see. Hello? Brain? Yeah, I would really have liked to shown off the roll-in combo here. It's definitely special. It has very precise execution, and it feels really good when you get it right. Crad, on the other hand, just lets you wail on the boss, so... Which Prin Cat is my favorite Prin Cat? I like Prin Hangry. I'm a big fan of Hangry.
This is like the weirdest place to mention this, but we are the RPG Valkyries, and we're raising money for some of our Valkyries to attend RPG Limit Break in May. That includes hotel, airfare, incidentals, and any extra money we have will be donated directly to NAMI, which is the charity of choice for RPG Limit Break. So thanks everyone for your support. Just a reminder too that all of our channel income is going to take this, a charity focused on alleviating stigma and raising awareness for mental illness in the gaming community, and that those just kind of include bits and subscriptions. Also, follow my friend Pran, she's cool. Also follow airemlis, he's cool too.
So this is the real hard part of this fight here. The second phase here is by far the worst. You can kind of just do whatever he wants, but we're going to try our best to kind of manipulate him into a more favorable position and pattern. But for the most part, it's just I gotta play it by ear and improvise. So hoping for the best here. I want to get Dylan in a really nice spot behind him so we can just start wailing away. Oh, good. That still counts as from behind. Attacks from behind do additional damage, and the boss cannot evade, or monsters cannot evade. Ooh, and he lets me finish him. How nice. It's like he knows this is a marathon, and I need a good run here. Although, that dash was not so good. So there's still a chance that Dylan will eat it here, but that's totally fine. Yeah, that's what I expected. That's how that normally plays out.
I'd also like to point out that if you haven't looked at our incentives document recently, it's pretty hilarious, so you should check it out.
So we just revive Dylan right behind the boss there, and we'll just finish him up and move on with our lives. So it's a pretty good evolver for Crad route, aside from the little bit of a misstep with the dash, but no big deal. At least, it could have definitely been worse, so count my blessings. So once again, we find a dais and no dragon orb, but Silmeria is here to save the day and do object reading and tell us, hey, we should go toward this city now. But additionally, aside the dais, we find the fresh corpse of an adventurer, and that's relatively rare, it seems, in this part, because, this is a volcano. But Leone decides, hey, this is a mercenary, a fellow adventure that we should, she should get a burial, a proper burial. And so the party pretty much just lets her do her thing. But eventually, or a little later on, Lazard goes back and kind of eavesdrops on what Leone is doing. And it turns out Leone is actually talking to the soul of the adventurer, which is not something a normal human being does. So, and even more so, to add even more suspicion to the scenario there, Lazard doesn't tell anybody that he just happened to see Leone talking to the soul of the recently dead adventurer. So, yeah. Everyone's got their secrets and no one wants to share.
Why did I die? Well, I'm not telling you because I'm dead.
Well, he was definitely telling Leone.
Don't.
So we have a few little cutscenes here. Again, it kind of builds up this relationship with Leone and Alicia. It's not really anything that seems like it's related to the story, but it'll come into effect a lot later. And I'll try and be sure to mention when that point is. That crawler is going for a walk. All right, cool. This dungeon, however, there's really not a whole lot, so even though you recently plugged why we're here and all that fun stuff, this would be another good time to do so. I really don't have much, so.
Well, yeah. So, all of you wonderful, generous donators have actually smashed both of our goals for this marathon. Our initial goal was $3,000, and that's a lot of money. But you guys smashed through that, and so we raised it to $5,000, and we were like, there's no way that we're gonna hit $5,000. We smashed through that. All of y'all just destroyed it. So I said, you know what? If we reach a different goal, we should totally have a stretch goal and like an incentive for it. So if we reach $6,000, we're going to have a Valk Q&A session. I mentioned it earlier, but we're going to take a poll, or just have all of you tell us what kind of questions you have for us, and get as many as we can, and have like a live kind of talk session where we all just kind of answer these questions. And then for $7,000, we are going to do Tina's Fun Corner again, which is just going to be Kuso Grande Valkyrie Edition. If you don't know what Kuso Grande is, it's an amazing, very special bad game tournament where they play like super bad games, but we'll be doing that as the stream lags. Oh dear. I'm not sure. Is it you?
I have no drop frame, so
Did you hear Valkyrie Kusagrande? Yes, you did. Okay. So what was I going to say? Right. So let me tell you the reason why the fun corner is $7,000. So we kind of did the math and talking about airfare, international airfare as well, hotels and incidentals, any food or something that we need to eat, band-aids if we fall and scrape our knees, things like that. We figured it out to be about $7,000 for all of the Valkyries who are going. So that's why the last goal is $7,000. So just so you know, you have all donated so much, and this is so helpful to all of us. And if we hit $7,000, that is going to be like the end-all, be-all for like all of the expenses. And any extra money that we have through donations will be going to NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which is the charity of choice for RPG Limit Break. And just thank you so much, everyone, for all the support. It's really mind-blowing. We have raised so much more money than we did last year, and I'm just hoping that the next marathon we'll be doing, which is to support Take This, that we will be able to smash even the amount we've gotten for ourselves.
yeah, I'm really looking forward to RPG Limit Break. I will be attending as well for the latter half of the week, so I'm really excited to be there.
Yes! That's so cool! I'm sorry, I'm so excited now!
So I'm really looking forward to meeting everybody. So yeah, I'm excited to support the Valkyries and their efforts to go as well.
Yeah, thank you so much to everybody who... what's the word I'm looking for? Submitted, thank you. Words. Submitted games. Thank you to everyone who is volunteering. Mike is volunteering and does these crazy hours that even I can't do, living in Japan, so thank you to all of our runners and our volunteers, and definitely to all of you donators. Without you, we wouldn't have a marathon, so thanks everyone, and I hope that you're all enjoying it.
You're tired. Rest now.
I hope so as well. So we do have a little bit of story here, and I guess there was a little also earlier, but that was another touching moment between Leone and Alicia that kind of builds their trust with each other, although Silmeria told us not to, so, Alicia likes to live dangerously, I suppose. But after that particular boss there, we find out via story that Odin and Freya are actually watching us as well, and mention that for whatever reason, this undead enemy that happened to show up while Alicia or Silmeria was doing her object reading, for whatever reason saw Dylan and got scared and ran away. And Odin is like, hey, we should probably, come up with a plan for what we're going to do with the Lord of the Undead. And for whatever reason, he decides that that's the moment that he decides to mention that. But as the casual game, story-wise, that's should probably mean nothing to you. But definitely keep that in the back of your mind as well. But once again, we are set off in another direction for yet another dungeon. Okay, these enemies are being a little rude, stacking up like that. No big deal. But off we go to find ourselves a dragon orb. This room is like the absolute worst. And just as a reminder, birds are jerks, and these are definitely not excluded from that. But fortunately, no major issues, no extra encounters, anything like that.